We'll go ahead and start on the agenda then. Recognition of guests. And our first guest is Mr. Madsen. And according to Tennessee's Air Board Policy 1.404, you have 5 minutes and to discuss you filled out the correct paperwork this time so we can recognize you. So, and please be careful about names of students. Their privacy needs to be held up above everything else.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I don't have any names of students in here.
Okay, thank you.
And I've actually redacted some information out of this, and I'll just go ahead and address that right now. Outside of my time, if I may, the comments that was made, I had redacted that out. If anybody would like the information, the comments that was made, I'd be happy to email that to you or get that to you, but I didn't feel it was appropriate to bring it up in this board meeting.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for finally allowing me to speak today. I will be touching on a few issues that we experienced last year with my children attending their first year at Wynn and their 4th year in Campbell County. But first, a little background on my children. My son is now in Jellicoe High School. My daughter moved on to the 6th grade, and it is being homeschooled because of these issues. During their time in school, we have gotten nothing but good compliments on my children's behavior and our involvement with their education their entire time attending school. With that being said, what started all this last year, we had an issue with the teacher telling my son's girlfriend that she could not have a piece of candy unless she broke up with my son. I went to the school and questioned the teacher's motives on this with Danny Shekels present, which is the principal of Wynn School. She claimed it was a joke and then was told by myself that that is not a way to joke around with students. Then after the issue was addressed, that's when my daughter started getting dress coded all the time, until I had a conversation with the principal on this issue. I'm a strict parent when it comes to my child being dressed. She does not dress inappropriately at home or when out in the public. And I was the one that took the children to school every morning. During that conversation, I addressed the outdated dress code and stated we are buying the longest shorts we can from these stores. During that conversation, Danny Shekels stated that the dress code is there to prevent my children from becoming pregnant or sexually assaulted. Then in a later conversation, told me that that they would let my daughter go on and whatever happens, happens. That's when I told Danny Shekels that if anyone ever touched my daughter, I would put them 6 foot in the ground. Mr. Shekels told me not to threaten him, and I told him that my statement was not directed to him, but out of his statement of letting her go on and whatever happens, happens. A week later, police showed up at my house and was called by Mrs. Fields to go out to Wynn School and talk to Danny Shekels. Danny Shekels gave a statement to police that I stated I would go down to the school and put somebody 6 foot in the ground. The conversation in question happened a week before police were notified, and Danny Shekels wasn't even the one that notified police. Ms. Fields did after she learned I was going to file civil action against the school. And Ms. Fields was even aware of this 4 days prior to calling police. To be clear, I never threatened the school, and actually I went up and allowed Captain J.J. Hatmaker to listen to the conversation where Shekels alleged I threatened him. The report was changed to reflect no threat was made to the principal, only anyone that thinks it's a good idea to sexually assault my daughter. But what doesn't mitigate the fact that Danny Shekels told police the threat was made directly to the school. Danny Shekels failed completely in his obligations as principal and his obligations to protect the children of the school, and Ms. Fields is also guilty of this as well. With all the school shootings that happened, this should have been reported to police immediately. The other issue I want to address is last year my child was pulled out of a math class and searched without reason or cause, as stated in a recording of Mr. Shekels that Ms. Fields actually has as well as this morning. And it concerns me for several reasons. One, the unnecessary interference of education by a principal of the school by pulling children out of class to do unlawful and unreasonable searches. If the school is so concerned with vapes being brought into the school, they do not single kids out and do illegal random searches on them, and install metal detectors at the entrance and problem solved. 2, Danny Shekels was doing these illegal random searches to violate policy, which, as stated by Jennifer Fields, that searches are to be out of suspicion. Unless Ms. Fields wants to walk back her statement on that like they have done several times already. And 3, the recorded statement Danny Shekels made about not having to notify me if a police officer and himself has searched my child. If a parent asks to be notified of things involving their child, you all have the obligation to do so, and without question or delay. The school is not running a prison, and Shekels is not the warden. warden. My child, unless they are doing something wrong, should have the expectation of privacy and the right to not have school staff interfere with their education. Another issue is principal making inappropriate comments to my son, which I will not repeat those comments at this meeting. However, I made these concerns and all the concerns in this statement known to Jeffrey Miller, Jennifer Fields, and you, Mr. Burge. And nobody, especially Jennifer Fields, properly investigated this. They only did a poor investigation into these issues. The reason why I say it's poor is because Jennifer Fields never once asked to talk to my children, and I would have gladly allowed you to talk to my children and by yourself. The only witness to the comment was the teacher's son, and Ms. Fields told me that due to the nature of the comments, the parent wanted to ask the child about it. Where was my child and our rights as parents when he made that decision before saying it? Where was my right as a parent to be notified of a search? Where was my child's rights when he was illegally searched? Then Ms. Fields went one step further and questioned my right to record conversations I am part of. Instead of being concerned about her staff, she was worried about me recording, and a parent should never be questioned on the rights when they state they have information and a recording that needed to be heard, and still to this day.
Your time is up, Mr. Madsen.
I have been fought against by the director this entire time.
Mr. Madsen, your time is up. Your 5 minutes.
To remedy this matter.
Thank
What
you.
I'm calling for is Danny Shekels' employment to be terminated under the following facts. Most importantly, failure
Thank
to
you,
protect
Mr.
students
Madsen.
after a
We
death threat
appreciate
was
it.
alleged against the school, even though untrue, is what he stated to police a week later, and he believed to be true. As well as Ms. Fields should be reprimanded as deemed by the board for her failure to notify law enforcement for 4 days. Shekels' illegal actions by randomly searching students against school policy. His reckless statements in regard to the dress code where he
Okay. Our next guest speaker is Zip Proctor. If Mr. Proctor will come forward.